researcher with the Media Review Network. And this comes against the background of a memorandum of understanding for cooperation, which was signed between the University of Haifa in Israel and the University of Free State in South Africa. Now, this obviously has gained momentum. And as a result of this cooperation agreement, there is talks of a webinar. And we are now joined by Ibrahim Vauda. Ibrahim Bhai, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother Inayat. Good to speak to you again after a long time.
Yes, Alhamdulillah, wonderful having you with us this morning. Now, clearly, this MOU that was signed between the two universities, the one in Haifa and in the Free State, is now gaining momentum. And as a result, we're seeing this first international webinar, Ibrahim Bhai, to mark this cooperation agreement.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned, Inayat, because this memorandum of understanding was signed way back in 2018. And what they have done is they have established this research center called RIMA, that is Research in Islam and Muslims in Africa. Now, what is very interesting here with this research station is one name called Hussein Solomon. Now, we South African Muslims, we know of Hussein over many, many years. And really, we have really found that whatever Hussein says or does or writes must be taken with not only a pinch of salt, but I think with a huge bag of salt. Now, if you remember many years ago, he said many things about Muslims and about terrorism in South Africa perpetrated and planned by Muslims in this country. And when we asked him to present us with evidence, up to this day, he hasn't provided any bit of evidence for us. So I'm not too concerned about this webinar of theirs. And if you look at the webinar and the presenters and the topics that have been laid down for discussion, it's all about the Middle East. And the heading is, of course, development in the Middle East. Now, when you look at the situation in the Middle East, I think what we need to do is to look at, first of all the major dots. Where are the major dots in the Middle East? Now, if we start off with Iran, Iran is the biggest thorn in the flesh of not only Israel or Zionist Israel, but of all the illegal Arab governments in the Gulf region. And the whole webinar that you're talking about is really ways and means of how to counter the Iranian threat in that region. Now, Iran really is not a threat to anybody in the region. What Iran is really doing is consolidating her position in the region, which, to me and my interpretation of Iran's consolidation, is that now if Israel finds an opposition strong enough to counter her nuclear ambitions in the region and to become the only power in the region, then of course Iran becomes a problem. The other dots that we have to look at, Inayat, is Yemen. We look at Iraq. We look at the elections coming up in the United States. We look at Qatar. Now, all these regions, if you look at all these dots, and we need to start joining these dots, then we see that this webinar that they are planning really is trying to create an impression that Iran, we need to change the regime in Iran. Iran is a major threat, and Iran is a terrorist country that sponsors international terrorism. Now, if you take the international terrorism, there is very little that we know about terrorism. Neither do they know anything about terrorism, because up to this day, terrorism has not been defined. Okay, that is my first point. Now, let's just look at Donald Trump and his peace deal in the Middle East recently. Now, he signed the peace deal with with the UAE and Bahrain. Now, really, Israel is in no war situation with any of those two countries or any of the other Gulf states. So what peace is he talking about? In his own country, Donald Trump creates more problems for himself and for his electorate. And but he goes outside of his country and he wants to draw a peace with the nations of the world. It really doesn't make sense. His entire modus operandi boggles the mind. Now, if you look at the, as I said, let's look at the dots. I've mentioned a little bit about Iran. If I do have the time, there's something I'd like to also talk about Iran and the assassination plot of the Iranian ambassador to South Africa. But let's look at Yemen. What Donald Trump should have been doing, really speaking to the Saudis, speaking to the UAE, because he provides them with large amounts of military weapons. And he could have twisted their arms and said to them a long time ago, listen, people, we need to maintain peace in Yemen. We need to withdraw our forces from Yemen because the innocent civilians are suffering. But this peace treaty of his, or the peace deal that he talks about, hasn't mentioned Yemen anywhere. We look at Iraq. I mean, he's threatened, or not he's threatened, actually he's promised to withdraw his troops from Iraq. Has he done so? He's probably done a little bit, but really nothing of substantial that is of great significance where we can say peace will now return to Iraq. Of course, the illegal Gulf regimes. We talk about democracy, but the moment you start talking about democracy in the Gulf region, and we're talking about free and fair democratic elections, nothing of the sort takes place. And Donald Trump, in this peace treaty of his, doesn't mention one word about democracy in those countries. I mean, he's going into elections for a second term as the president of the United States. Now, to me, all these peace deals of his is nothing else but trying to curry favor with the electorate in his own country so that they could vote for him and return him to the White House. Whether that is going to happen or not, we will only know in November when the election takes place. The same with Qatar. I mean, what he should have been doing is to say to his cronies in the Middle East, all those surrogate governments of his in the Middle East, and say, listen, come to terms with Qatar and let's resolve the issues. Now you're talking peace. There is none of these things that he talks about when he boasts and brags about his peace deals in the Middle East. So there is no progress made anywhere in any of his peace deals to accomplish peace in that region. I mean, the most important problem in the Middle East still remains Palestine, the illegal occupation and the militarization of Gaza and the rest of the West Bank. These are the areas he should be talking about. These are the genuine areas where peace between those occupied territories and the occupier needs to be reached. And now we say that Donald Trump is serious about peace, but nothing of the sort. No progress is being made. He should be urging, as I said, the Arab countries to talk peace and to end all their wars and against Yemen, against the Gazan people, the people in the West Bank. That is where we're talking about when we talk about peace. But nowhere in any of his peace deals does Donald Trump talk about those things. Now, quickly, I just want to touch on
Ibrahim Bhai, we are heading for news. Yes,
Okay.
we have got about a minute, please.
Okay, I'm going to give you in 10 seconds this whole issue of the assassination attempt or the plot to assassinate the ambassador to South Africa. And if you just do a little bit of research on the person that has written an article a day or two ago in News 24, a guy called Jason Brody or Brodsey or something. And when you look at him and you study his credentials, he is really a fake. He is a representative of a radio station that is sponsored by the United States, propagating fake news against Iran and hoping that, with this fake news of his, that there will be regime change in Iran. But nothing of the sort. Nobody's going to kill anybody or assassinate any ambassador in South Africa. So that shows you exactly, the plan and the plot of these people that claim to be, experts in international affairs. Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah, Jazakallah to you as well, Ibrahim Bhai, and for putting this entire discussion into perspective. Wonderful having you with us as always. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, that brings us straight on to 9 a.m. We're heading for the news at the studios of Al Ansar. We'll be back with a lot more. Stay with us.